In the third lesson of Section 2 in Unit 5, we are going to revisit our models to allow us to subtract fractions with unlike denominators. And the first couple of models we're going to use again for this process will be our fraction circles or rectangles and our pattern blocks. And we will again look at two different types of questions. Given the visual, determine the answer to a given subtraction calculation, and given the subtraction calculation, represent it by modeling in order to determine the difference. Always remember to check that your answer is in simplest form. So let's consider fraction circles or rectangles. We're going to use the model to determine the difference. And the first thing we need to figure out is what subtraction calculation is actually being represented here. If I look at the first whole, the first fraction circle, it has been divided into 4 equal sections and 3 are shaded. If I look at the second fraction circle, it has been divided into 8 equal sections and 3 are shaded. And we're subtracting. So in other words, what is 3/4? Take away 3/8. And to help us figure this out, we're going to do an overlap here. So I'm going to take my second fraction circle, the one with the smaller amount shaded, and I'm going to overlap it on the first fraction circle that has the larger amount shaded. And let's see what we get. So there we go. And when we do the overlap, we see actually that our first whole now has been divided into 8 equal sections, which is pretty cool because the LCD of 4 and 8 is indeed 8. So that's important here. And what I want to do now is that overlap, I got to remove it. I want to take it away. So if I remove those 3/8, well, what are we left with? We are left with 3/8. So 3/4 subtract 3/8 is indeed 3/8. Simplest form. In our second example, we will use modeling to calculate a half, subtract 2/5. This time we're going to use fraction rectangles. And for my first fraction rectangle, 2 equal sections with 1 shaded. I'm going to illustrate the second fraction as well, only this time it will have 5 equal sections and 2 shaded. I need to be able to remove the 2/5 from the 1/2. I need to be able to take it away. Here, though, we look at our denominators. They're different. We need a common denominator. And our common denominator for 2 and 5, well, if I list out my multiples, those are some multiples of 2, multiples of 5, 5, 10, there. Don't need to go any further. So I'm going to redraw the half, and I'm going to redraw the 2/5 with a common denominator of 10. In other words, I'm going to divide each of these wholes into 10 equal sections and shade the same amount. So I will get 5/10 for my half, and I will get 4/10 for the 2/5. And I look at it the same way. Well, I need to remove that shaded region, that 4/10 shaded region, from the 5/10. As so, I take it away from my half or the 5/10, and what am I left with? Well, I'm left with 1/10. So we have just discovered that 1/2 subtract 2/5 actually equals 1/10. And that is simplest form. So let's now look at our pattern blocks. Here's our first visual. We want to figure out the subtraction calculation first. Well, right here, I have 2 rhombuses, so that's going to be 2/3. I'm subtracting or taking away. In this one, I have 1 triangle. That's a 1/6. So I'm trying to figure out, well, what's 2/3 subtract 1/6? We're going to use the overlap idea again. So I'm going to take that triangle. I'm going to try and take it away from the 2/3. So let's see. I'm going to do overlap. There we go. And I want to remove that triangle. So let's do it. And we're going to put everything in terms of triangles. So I would be left with then 3 triangles, 3 1/6 pattern blocks. In other words, 3/6. That's not simplest form. 3/6 can reduce to 1/2. 3 divided by 3, 6 divided by 3. Now, if I look at my pattern blocks, if I look over here, the fact that our answer is 1/2 makes sense, because what shape would fit beautifully over those 3 triangles? That's right, our trapezoid, which we know is 1/2. In example 2, we're going to use pattern blocks to help us figure out what 5/6 minus 1/2 is. So let's see, 5/6. 5 green triangles. I'm going to take away 1/2. So I'm taking away a trapezoid. Let's use the overlap idea. So if I take that trapezoid and put it on those triangles. Okay, and then I got to take it away. I got to take away that trapezoid. I got to take away that 1/2. What are we left with? We're left with 2 triangles. So I know that 5/6 minus 1/2 gives me 2/6. But that can reduce to 1/3. And that makes perfect sense again, because 1/3 is a rhombus. And that rhombus fits beautifully over those 2 triangles. So 5/6 subtract 1/2 equals 1/3. Final answer. And now I would like you to proceed to the next video in this lesson.